Okay. So this is an article that Helia wrote, so I'm going to do the video solo. Talking about kind of right person, right level. I have hired so many folks in my career, and I think I'm really, really good at it and also make a lot of mistakes. So, in reflecting on sort of what was needed and where did we go well and where did I mess up and kind of what all the different pieces were, kind of tried to pull all of that together. And thinking about one of the foundational pieces of getting hiring right is sort of what is the right role and what's the right level you're looking for. I was working with an organization recently and their EA was not performing. I think the EA had a very similar work style and approach to the CEO they were supporting instead of balancing them out. And we're much more thinking about like how to set up a system than getting things done. And the CEO's solution was to hire a chief of staff. But that wasn't actually what they needed. What they needed was someone who was wildly detail oriented, who was making sure their inbox was cleaned up, who was making sure their schedule was tight and clear and documented every day, was making sure those expenses were teed up, which, chief of staff is probably not the right level for that. I've done this myself. I've hired for a director of development because I wanted someone who was more experienced and kind of ready to jump in, but I wasn't actually ready to give them any of the relationships that I had. And so I really didn't need a director. I needed a senior associate or maybe a manager that could come in and really support me versus kind of building their own portfolio. And these are all things that really you want to think about before you even write the job description. So we laid out a couple different things. So one of which was how do you start with like four magic questions? So what keeps happening that shouldn't? This is like what are all the urgent fires that need to get solved? What's not happening that should? Because there might be some gaps in capacity or capability. What's working but feels really fragile? Okay, maybe you have a dependency on specific people. I often make things dependent on myself, which is not a good plan. Where do we want to be in 1 to 3 years? Let's not just hire for this exact moment. So, kind of grounding in that. And then also starting to think about, as I was sharing earlier, you got to match the level of what you're looking for to the decision making authority. So, if you want someone to execute the task with clear direction, like is kind of what I wanted in the development role, then you need a coordinator or associate level. Or if you want them to own them and make day to day decisions, which you could argue is what I wanted on the back end, maybe they're a manager. But I would still be involved in all the major calls. But if you want someone to really run an area independently, you want to hand it off and like let them figure it out, you want a director level or above. And so be really honest with yourself around this. You don't want to kind of go in and be like, I think I want this. I think I want. It's like, no, this is really what it's going to look like. And then you need to be really realistic about what you can support. And this is tricky because different levels need different support from you. So coordinators are going to need really clear direction and training. Managers need context and connections. Directors need authority and information. VPs need like partnership. So if you don't have time to train someone, be really thoughtful about what you're coming in. If you're not ready to share decision making, be in that space. When I was at Think of Us, I set a temporary rule in place where everyone we hired had to have some grounding work experience, but also they'd had to do a version of the job they'd done before. And this was just, we were running so thin and so fast that people didn't have the capacity to train up. I remember there was one moment when I was working with a really solid, I think she was a senior manager on our team, maybe a director, really solid team member. But she needed 4 to 5 hours of my time to do the job that we were asking her to do. She hadn't built something from scratch in quite this way. She hadn't managed a team doing this well, doing all those pieces, well, managing the customer relationships, all of the components. She really needed more investment from me. And I did not have 5 hours a week to spend on the phone with her to kind of engage there. And so one was, how am I hiring and getting you support in between us, right? That can dive in and drive all of this work forward. But also, how do we prevent this from happening again? Because everyone was feeling this across the board. And so that was one of the solutions. It was not the permanent long term, but it helped us get through a little bit. Um, and so we kind of have written all this stuff out, and then we made a really helpful guide. Well, I think it's really helpful, biased, but one that's just really like, what do common roles look like? So we did a reference guide that has like at ops exec support levels, development, program, product, sales, all of those. What are some of the roles and at the different levels? What they do, not do, and some starting salary ideas. We also put together a kind of much more detailed, like, how do you come up with the right level, right role template? So if you want something you can kind of really walk through, you have that. And then we have my mostest favorite thing, which is I started a number of years ago doing a why interview. And so what this means and looks like is early in the process, someone pretty senior and comfortable hiring would have a why interview with someone about like why are you doing this job? So where walk me through your resume, your history, and then tell me why you're screaming yes for being in this interview. And the reality is that when you're in early days, you need someone who wants to build stuff. When you have a really high functioning team and things are set, you need someone that's going to execute as it's being prescribed. When you are hiring for a product role with something that is lots of new products coming out, you need someone who wants something different than someone who's iterating on existing products and kind of updating them as you go. Do you have a big team? Do you have a small team? Is a lot of this actually people development? Do they need to be someone who loves running a team, or do they need someone who just wants to run and get some things done? So it's a wide range. But in the why interview, if you ask people to walk you through kind of what they've done, what they've loved, what they haven't loved, and why they're in this room, what they're excited about, you're able to hear. And if you've done the pre work to think about what is the level and role that we need here, and why is this role going to matter to us? It's a very clear alignment. And when I do this, it has prevented so many misfits and misalignments. And when I don't do it, I sometimes jump in, which I have done many times, onto what are the technical skills I need, or what's the balance on the team that we're looking for, or what's the experience this person brings, all of which are really valuable, but are not actually the foundation of like, is this the right level, right role, right person for it? So, anyways, enjoy. I hope it's helpful. Let us know what works, what's not. As always, take what's helpful, leave what's not, and like make it your own. But hopefully, a good foundation to build from. Thanks.